mess this up. And Jim, I think I got this right, but you're an acting board member, right?
No, I'm an alternate.
Alternate. I'm sorry, I said the wrong word. Excuse me.
No, I'm not an alternate.
Jim is though, right?
Well, Mr. Springer, we have two Jims now.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Rubus is an alternate.
Yes.
Mr. Van Ness is not. Okay. Oh man. Could one of you change your name? No, never mind. No, that's all right. All right. All right. Okay, so
just before we start, I never heard back from Mr. Rubis unless you called while I was out. But will you be able to stay for the entire meeting? Because we have one board member that isn't going to be able to make it. And so we will need a fifth if you can stay for the entire meeting.
Okay, I'll try. That's why I called you this afternoon and asked if.
Right. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
we'll do our best to move through the agenda, Jim and Mr. Rubis. Okay. All right, Melanie or Mr. Vunich, are we ready to start?
Actually, sir, I don't see an important person on the call, and that is the court reporter.
Oh, yes, we do not have the court reporter, do we? Courtney. All right, well, in that case, I guess we'll go into a little bit of a holding pattern here. Did anyone hear from her in terms of whether she was going to make it or she'd be running late or anything like that?
I did not, sir, but I believe Ms. Ripito is trying to give her a telephone call right now.
Okay, great.
I did originally hear from her and she said that she would be able to attend tonight's meeting. I have not heard from her today saying that she could not. I will do my best to get a hold of her and see if she's just having trouble logging in. Or, yeah, just a moment.
Okay.
And we apologize for the delay.
Oh, that's all right. Let's see.
While we have a moment and we're off the record, we do have a new regular member, Jim Van Ness. He is in the red shirt, as I would call it. I'm sure that's not the right color. And if you'd like to all introduce yourselves to him, I'm sure he'd appreciate it.
Well, I'm Arnie Sprunger. I think I remember Jim. Jim, you were a council member at one time, right?
Yes, I was. And I remember you from a long time ago.
It's been a long time ago. Yeah. Well, welcome aboard.
Hey, Jim, I'm Jared Frank. Good to meet you. I'm the co-chair, current co-chair. I guess tonight we'll be discussing roles, but for tonight, and I don't know if you had heard, Mr. Sprunger was kind enough to take over the chair duties for this evening. So,
Yes, I heard. Thank you.
thank you.
Jim, I'm the other Jim.
Other Jim, you're on mute.
I am.
I said two Jims is good.
Not as good as two Joes.
Oh, no. There we go. And there's actually a shot at that. I doubt if there's a shot for two Arnies, but anyway.
One Kevin's plenty, but I'm Kevin Lux. I'm probably the newest member. I've only been doing this for probably about 8 months now, maybe a little less than that even. But nice to meet you.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you introducing yourselves. And the star of the show tonight, Mr. Young.
Hardly, but nice to meet you. I'm John Young. I'm the city attorney.
Thank you.
To all, you can't see me, but I'm Travis Newberry, the senior planner for the department. We did have someone come in under a general Zoom username that may have been Courtney, but they left hoping it was her and she'll come back.
Is there any chance Courtney might have dialed into the other Zoom link sitting there by herself?
It is possible, but I am texting with the city administrator who's in that Zoom meeting right now, and he didn't say she's there. So, but good idea.
Was she provided that link? She probably shouldn't have been. I mean, it's unlikely she was, is what I mean by that.
And Mr. Newberry, that Zoom user is back on the attendee list.
I've given them the option to be promoted to a panelist. We'll see if it's Courtney.
Well, while I have all of your attention, I would just do an unshameless plug for Celebrate Wildwood, which is being held next Saturday, September 24th. I'm in the field next to the theater and on Main Street. There'll be plenty of activities for everyone, so we hope you can fit us in your busy schedules. We'd love to see you. It will be a city tent, so you can get kind of free soda, free water there, whatever you might need. And obviously, you're always welcome.
Joe, was it the back to school night or what was a few weeks ago? I should have known because I went to it, but was that what it was?
Yes, it was the back to school party and our last concert of the summer season, and
Yeah,
we couldn't have fit another person in there.
I know. That was a great night though. That was well
Yeah,
done.
it was. It was
Everybody.
just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to drop off for a second and confer with Miss Ripito. I'll be back.
It's nice to see some of the members in the actual City Hall office area, but I guess Arnie or Jared, was there any more discussion about when we might be going back live as opposed to Zoom links or I guess hybrid or something along those lines? Or is that on the agenda at some point?
If I may, Mr. Sprunger, Mr. Young, Miss Tallman forgot about the meeting. She is picking up her daughter at soccer practice and thinks she'll be available to participate sometime shortly after 7 p.m. Given that we have a closed session, do we need her here to do the dynamics of the closed session, or can we proceed forward without her?
We can proceed forward with the closed session without her.
All right. I'm going to give some direction to Miss Ripito, and she'll be downstairs very shortly.
Okay.
Kevin, to answer your question, I don't believe we've had any follow-up on that. I don't know if that'll be part of the discussion this evening, but I assume very shortly here we'll kind of address both the meeting time moving forward and what format.
Okay.
Again, my apologies to all, including our attendees. We'll be righting the ship here very shortly. And I think once Miss Ripito gets back down to the council chambers and settles in, Mr. Sprunger, we can begin the first portion of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Jill, one thing I should have mentioned, do we have someone who can keep minutes for this first part?
Yes, I'll be glad to do that, Mr. Young.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. And thanks for the reminder, as always. Mr. Chair, with your permission, Mr. Newberry, Ms. Ripito, are we ready to go?
I see a head nod from Mrs. Ripto. I don't know about Mr. Newberry. I don't see him, but are we ready? Ready?
Mr. Chair,
We're ready.
I'll be transcribing the minutes. So yes, I think we're ready to go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bunich. All right. Well, good evening. This evening is our monthly meeting of the Board of Adjustment. While we are having to change how we operate, we are still committed to a transparent process and encouragement of public comment during our meetings. We will be accepting testimony from parties. If you wish to testify on any particular petition before us this evening, please use the raise hand feature. You can raise your hand at any time and we will recognize you at the appropriate time for the presentation of evidence for each case. Director of Planning, Mr. Joe Bunich, will be moderating the Zoom meeting and will be asked to provide names of those individuals that wish to speak, again, as hands are raised. Tonight, I would like to call the meeting of the City of Wildwood's Board of Adjustment to order. The board members present today are Mr. Jim Rubis, alternate board member, Mr. Kevin Lux, board member, Mr. Jim Van Nest, board member, Mr. Jared Frank, board member, and myself, Arnie Sprunger, acting chair for tonight's meeting. The Department of Planning staff present is Joe Bunich, Director of Planning, and Melanie Ripto, Assistant Director of Planning, as well as City Attorney John Young, and soon Court Reporter Courtney Tallman. City Administrator Steve Cross will be in attendance shortly. The first item on tonight's agenda is, excuse me, a closed meeting. Therefore, I will entertain a motion that the Board of Adjustment go into a closed meeting with the mayor, the city attorney, city administrator, and members of the Department of Planning for the purpose of discussing matters relating to the following: legal actions, causes of action, litigation, or any confidential or privileged communications between the city's representatives and its attorneys pursuant to section 610.021, section 1 of the revised statutes of Missouri, RSMO. Okay, I would like to take a roll call to enter into the closed meeting after a motion has been made and seconded. So do I have a motion to enter into that closed meeting? Mr. Frank,
I'd like to motion to enter into a closed session.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lux seconds that. And so we will do a roll call here to enter into the closed meeting. Mr. Frank, how do you vote?
Yes.
Lux?
Yes.
Mr. Van Nest?
Yes.
And Mr. Rubis?
Yes.
And I myself also vote yes. And so we shall close this part of this session and move into our closed session. So at this time, people will need to log off of this Zoom meeting, and the board members will log into the to an alternate Zoom meeting. And then we'll come back for the regular public hearing. Thank you.
Good work, everybody, getting back in. Melanie's working with Mr. Van Esten, and then I think we'll be ready to go whenever that's done.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I just wanted to make sure everyone could hear me. Perfect.
I think we can. And Mr. Van Nest is still in process of rejoining. Okay. Mr. Van Ness, would you like to do a sound check?
Can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you. Okay, let's see. I think we have 1, 2, 3. I think we have everybody present at this time, don't we? Okay, I'm seeing some yes nods. So I think at this juncture, we're ready to resume our regular public meeting. Melanie, are you ready to go? And Joe? Okay, so we are now going to move on to the public hearings scheduled for tonight's meeting. But before we do, I would like to offer into the record the affidavit of publication pertaining to tonight's meeting, September 15, 2022, and take official notice of the zoning ordinance of the City of Wildwood, including Chapter 400, Article 2, authorizing and establishing the Board of Adjustments' powers and duties. Now, let me explain the hearing procedure. Please be aware the information I'm about to describe is also provided on the Board of Adjustment Public Hearing Procedure handout, which was available online prior and up to tonight's meeting. This hearing is informal in its nature. However, the meeting's proceedings will be recorded by a reporter for future transcription if needed. The petitions are called in the order listed on the agenda. As the petition is called, I will ask a Department of Planning staff member to read each request into the record. Thereafter, the Department of Planning will have opening remarks and a brief slide presentation. Then the petitioner or his or her representative will be asked to state their name and address, be sworn in by the court reporter, make a brief presentation to the board explaining the nature of the requested variance, and present such evidence and witness testimony that may evidence the practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship that warrant the variance. The board will only consider the unique character of the property to determine whether they warrant the granting of a variance. The board members may ask questions to clarify the facts of the petitioner's presentation. When the board is satisfied with the material presented by the petitioner, I will then ask if there is anyone present online who would like to speak in favor or opposition to the requested variance. Each speaker will be asked to provide their name and address, be sworn in, and then provide their evidence and oral testimony. Procedurally, the petitioner may request a continuance at any time during the hearing prior to a call for the vote in order to bring in additional evidence or testimony. The board may also continue the proceedings. After the submission of testimony and evidence from all interested parties, the board will ask a staff person to provide the Department of Planning's report on this matter, if requested by any member of the board, the petitioner, or any individual that is participating online. Once all witnesses have been heard, I will call for a motion to grant or deny, with or without conditions, the variance request. Then the board will vote. At that time, the presentation of evidence relating to the petition is concluded and no further evidence will be permitted. The board may make a decision today. 4 members of the board must vote in favor of the variance for it to be approved. If a variance is approved, the petitioner has 6 months to obtain the necessary permits or establish the use, or it will expire. If the board's decision is unfavorable, the petitioner has the right of appeal to the St. Louis County Circuit Court. This appeal must be done within 30 days of the decision. Okay, Mr. Vunich, are there any questions at this time?
To those attendees, if you have a question regarding the procedures as just read by the chair, if you would kindly use the raise hand feature, the department will promote you and you can ask those questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, Mr. Vunich, would you please read the first request into the record?
Board of Adjustment 27-22, The Fields at Clouds End, 850 Babbler Park Drive, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63005, care of Jeff Atkins, 6437 Spruce Field, O'Fallon, Missouri, 63132. A request for an exception to the setback requirement for private stables in order to allow for the adjustment of certain boundary lines of 2 lots that are located at 840 Babbler Park Drive and 850 Babbler Park Drive. St. Louis County locator numbers 21X640291 and 21X640309, which would thereby authorize an existing private stable and existing barn to be 30 feet from the adjusted property line in lieu of the 100-foot requirement. This request is contrary to section 415.090 NU non-urban resident district regulations of the city of Wildwood zoning ordinance, and the property is located in Ward 3. Before any further comments relative to this request, the department would like to also enter into the record the following items. Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment. Chapter 415 of the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the zoning ordinance. The file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this request and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation. And then finally, any testimony or evidence that are provided as part of tonight's hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. At this time, would the department like to provide a brief slide presentation?
Mr. Chair, if I may, on the first application, the applicant has requested this item is postponed, and the city did not have time to post this in a timely manner. So the presentations for the department and the applicant will be delayed until such time, and this item will be advertised accordingly if the board chooses to agree to postpone the item. However, if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item, we'd still like to offer them the opportunity to do so now, or wait until the agenda item is back on another agenda.
Give just a moment here for anyone who might want to speak. I don't know that there are any. Do we see anyone?
Well, Mr. Chair, none of the attendees have raised their hand, but if they would like to speak on this matter, please do, and we will promote you. And as mentioned by Mr. Newberry, I believe there are individuals in attendance at City Hall. So we would ask them if they'd like to speak to step to the podium, be sworn in by the court reporter, and provide their comments. Thank you.
Okay, it doesn't appear as if we have anyone who would like to take you up on that offer. So for this item to be postponed, I would need to have a motion to postpone this item. Thank you, Mr. Lux. There's a motion to postpone. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Rubis. And we shall now take a vote. Mr. Frank, how do you vote? And
Yes, postpone, please.
thank you. Mr. Rubis,
Yes.
Mr. Lux,
Yes.
Mr. Van Nest.
Yes.
I also vote yes to postpone. Therefore, that request is postponed. Okay. Mr. Vunich, would you please read the second request into the record? And then we will have a slide presentation by the department.
Yes, sir. Second case is BA 28-22 Cybersecurity Services 16442 Village Plaza View Drive, Wildwood, Missouri 63011, care of David Wren. 4015 Princeton Ridge Drive, Wildwood, Missouri 63025. A request for an exception to the sign regulations as applied within the town center area for the purpose of installation of permanent signs at 16442 Village Plaza View Drive, St. Louis County locator number 23U140721, thereby allowing business wall sign components at heights of 44 inches in lieu of the 24-inch maximum. This request is contrary to the regulations set forth in Chapter 415.420 sign regulations for all C2 shopping district and Chapter 415.190 CA Plan Commercial District regulations of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, along with amended CA Plan Commercial District Ordinance number 1895. This particular property is located in Ward 4. And Mr. Chair, again, the department would like to enter into the record the following items. Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment. Chapter 415 of the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the zoning ordinance. File that has been developed and maintained by the department regarding this request and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation. And then finally, any evidence or testimony that is provided as part of tonight's hearing. Mr. Chair, thank you. And I believe Ms. Ripito has the slide presentation.
Yes, and Mr. Boone, just for clarification, did you say this was in Ward 1 or Ward 4?
4, sir.
Okay, the document says Ward 1. Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Ripito?
Thank you. Just to make sure that you can hear me okay. We've been having some
can.
technical issues. Excellent. Thank you. So you can see on the map shown on my screen that the property here is at 16442 Village Plaza Drive. You can see here that this property has frontage on Villa Plaza View Drive, as well as West Glen Farms Drive and Highway 100 along the south here. You take a bigger overview of the project area. You can see it's highlighted here, and the surrounding properties are commercial across the street, but a lot of surrounding residential in the area. You take a closer look at the specific lot, you can see that it's relatively flat through most of the lot, except when you get down closer to Highway 100, in which there's a bit of a steeper slope here and a bit of a buffer from the highway. These are the plans that were shown for the sign.
That's, I think
Yeah,
that's the first, okay.
You are correct. Just a moment.
Yeah, the wrong one, yeah.
Having one technological issue after another.
All right.
Okay. Okay, that's much better. As
There
you
we
can
go.
see here, yeah, as you can see here, this shows the front of the building and the proposed signage, as well as here. The proposed sign is proposed to be 46.1 square feet. And the letters, as you can see up here, are shown to be 44 inches tall with the width of the sign at 151 inches. The sign regulations state the maximum height of the letters can be 24 inches. So this exceeds what the city.
Melanie, sorry, you're really choppy on my end. I'm having trouble. You're in and out. I don't know if that's
Okay. Is anybody else having issues?
I can hear you just fine, Melanie.
Okay. Let me see if I can grab another.
Am I the only one having trouble?
No, I am as well, Courtney. I don't know. if it's on our end or Melanie's end, but it was breaking up pretty bad for me as well.
And,
Okay, can you hear me better here?
I think so.
Okay,
That's really good.
very good. Okay, excellent. Yeah, it was the cordless microphone, so that could have been part of the issue. So let me get my screen back up here. Oh, okay.
And not that one again.
No, there we go. Okay. So, the first photograph that you see here is the front facade of the building. It faces south towards Manchester Road. This photograph is taken from the parking lot near the trail that runs along there. This photograph here is looking west in the parking lot, and you can see beyond the tree line, that's where the trail runs. And this is looking east down the parking lot. You can see the neighboring building and as well as the landscaping. This is looking from the front facade of the building across the parking lot towards the trail. This photograph was actually taken from the trail looking through towards the property. And this photograph was taken from the trail looking down at Highway 100. This is the other side of the building. And this is taking a photograph of the rear facade of the building from the entrance, the drive entrance. This is taken from directly in front of the rear of the building, so the north facing side of the building. And this is a view of the neighboring building from the same vantage point. This is looking up the street towards the intersection of Village Plaza Drive and West Glen. And you can see that there's an identification sign in the right of way there along the sidewalk. This is looking down the street, which would take you down to connect onto Highway 100. There's another entrance on the parking lot from West Glen. No, this is from Village Plaza Drive. This is actually looking down. You can see the front facade of the building that faces Manchester from, this is the driveway entrance. This is taking a step back a bit. You can see their identification signage, and this is the front of the building from the sidewalk. This photograph was actually taken from my car as I was pulling onto Highway 100. So this is from 100 looking up at the building. You can see the retaining wall, you can see the roof of the building in the photograph. And with that, that concludes our slide presentation. We do have an applicant here that will be presenting on this case. So I would be happy to turn that over to them if that's what you'd like.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. Before we do that, are there any questions by any board members for the department before we hear from the petitioner? Mr. Rubis. And we need to be able to hear you, yeah.
Is this building next to the bank, or is this the bank building that is there?
Mr. Rubis, it's next to the bank, immediately to the west.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Van Nest.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. In our packet, they have some pictures of the previous signage on the building before this tenant has moved in, when it was Prudential. And I thought that was an important picture to see what it was previously as far as signage. And the same thing with the Reliance Bank signage was in our packet. So I just think those are important pictures also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Ness. We, yeah, I saw those as well. Maybe just a real quick question and then we can proceed. Those other signs, the previous sign that was on the building and the adjacent buildings or whatever, are those signs in compliance with Wildwood's sign ordinances?
Mr.
Mr.
Chair, members of the board, we spent the better part of yesterday reviewing all the variance requests associated with this particular property. According to the city's database, there have been none issued. The department has either two explanations. There was a transition between the current requirements of the 24-inch height to what was previously allowed, which did not have that specific restriction, or they were installed for the purposes of the use without the appropriate authorizations. But there were no variances granted to these particular properties, at least based upon our database and searching most of our files yesterday.
And would those signs be in compliance or would they be non-compliant?
No, sir. The Prudential and the Reliance Bank were earlier signs. There is a reference to Simmons Bank, and that one was the most recent installation and is in compliance, or was in compliance.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there any consideration for the size of the building in terms of how big the sign can be on the building?
There's three main components that constitute what I would call the proportion or scale of the sign. It's the sign lettering height, which is the subject of tonight's discussion. It's also its length, and then the maximum square footage. All wall signs are limited to 50 square feet in the city of Wildwood, and the length is premised on the space the tenant has relative to the center or individual building. It's just a simple length measurement. So if it's 20 feet, in principle, they could have, you use that 20 times the 24 inches or 2 feet, and they could have up to 40 feet. So that's how we manage proportion or scale.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the department? Okay, if not, Ms. Ripito, if we could invite the petitioner to come forward and present.
Mr. Wren is in attendance and as a panelist.
Okay. Mr. Wren, can you hear us fine? Can you hear me fine?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Can hear you. Yes, sir. Thank you. If you would please state your name, which you sort of already did, but state it again, and your address and the relation to the property. And then remember, you need to be sworn in by the court reporter.
Yes, David Wren. And my home address is 4075. So it's 4075 Princeton Ridge versus the 4015. And the property, we actually purchased the property in early 2021. And after getting the occupancy permit earlier in 2022, we moved in. So we are an owner occupant of the building.
Okay. Okay. And then if you'd be sworn in by the court reporter, that'd be great.
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Wren, if you would be kind enough to explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance, we would appreciate that.
Yeah, you know, based off of the photos of the prior occupants of the building, obviously they were larger signs.
Mr. Wren, I think we've lost your audio. Are you still there? Technology, oh boy. Mr. Wren, you have no video and now we have no audio. Let's see.
Mr. Chair, if I may, he, from what I understand, is out of town and might be having technical difficulties. I do have another Mr. Wren here in person that said that he would be willing to take over if we can't get Mr. David Wren back. So if we would like to swear him in, I have a Zachary Wren here.
I think we're going to need to do that because David is now away from us. So,
Okay.
did you say it was Zachary?
Yep.
Wren?
That is correct.
Okay, so Zachary, if you could do the drill here, state your full name, your address, your relation to the property, and then be sworn in by the court reporter, that'd be great.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay. My name is Zachary Wren. I am at 2507 Bellagio Court, Wildwood, Missouri, 63011. My relationship to the building is I am David's son and an employee of Network Technology Partners. So my father is the owner of the building, and we are the occupants.
Okay, thank you, sir. And now if you'd be sworn in by the court reporter, that would be great.
Okay.
Sir, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wren. Now, you probably heard me say this to your dad, but I'm going to go ahead and repeat this just for your benefit. We need to hear your explanation of the nature of the request and the hardship or the practical difficulty necessitating the variance. So there you go.
Yeah, as the previous signs were about the size of the sign that we are proposing, that is why we went with the size that we are proposing now. And there is, as we also saw in the picture, there is difficulty finding our building as Google and Apple Maps drops people off. We found normally around the Emos area, up there by Vallarta and Emos. And we believe that proper signage to our building would help people safely get to our building more accurately.
Okay. Are there any questions? Is there anything else that you would like to add to that, Zach?
No.
Okay. Are there any questions for the petitioner?
Mr. Chair, I see David Wren's got his hand raised. We've got him back.
Yes, yes, good call, Mr. Rubis. I guess, Zach, if you want to stay, as kind of the lead person in this discussion, or if you want to turn it back over to your dad, I don't know if we'll be able to or not, but
I would be happy to stay here, and if we can get him back, even better. But I'll stay here and take lead on this. Yeah.
okay. Well, if there's any questions, Zach, feel free to go ahead and answer those. And David, if you want to chime in, feel free to do that as well. Okay. Are there any questions for the petitioner? No. Well, Mr. Rubis, you have one? Yes.
What is it that you're really asking for? That the increase in the size of the letters of the sign?
The current code restriction is 24 inches for signs in that area of Wildwood, and our sign was designed by a third party, and that third party came to us with 44-inch signs to properly display our name and logo to the surrounding area. And we are proposing that we go with that design from the third party.
When you purchased the building and came to the part where now you're going to put up a sign, did you check with Wildwood as far as the sign regulations?
We that is we were aware of the sign regulations, and that is why we requested variance, and that is why we are here today to request a variance on the sign regulation.
Okay.
We believe that the front of our building is larger than where 2 feet of sign would not be as visible and may even look worse than the sign that was designed.
Do you by chance, Mr. Wren, either one of you, do you by chance have any rendition or an image that would show what the signage would look like if you were in compliance with the zoning requirements or the signage requirements?
We do not. The letters on the sign, the NTP and the shield are larger than the 24-inch. The Wren and Associates, part of that, which is below the shield and NTP, is approximately 20 to 24 inches. So while the NTP and the shield are larger, the Wren and Associates is slightly smaller than the 24 inches. So it would look closer to the Wren and Associates as opposed to the NTP. And you know, I guess I lost contact earlier, but even the building next to us, the Simmons Bank building, on the front of the building, before where there was Simmons Bank and Reliance Bank, if you took the Simmons Bank, which was 24 inches, and then above one of the windows, if you took the Edward Jones sign, those, not only would they be 48 inches, it would be the bottom of that Edward Jones sign to the top of the Simmons Bank building sign. And that would be a greater space than the 44 inches that we're asking for. And I apologize, something happened, I guess, that we lost connectivity, but what I was saying at that point was always visitors end up in the Village Plaza parking lot near Velarde's or Emo's. And I'm talking to them on the phone, trying to explain that we're down in front of the shopping center. And I can see them looking around and driving. And I had one lady with one of our vendor partners that I thought she was literally going to run into a parked car trying to find our building. With the vegetation in front of the building, the sign that we're requesting most likely won't be visible from Manchester Road. It would be visible from the mobile station across the way. The signage from the back, in the back of the building, would be certainly visible from the parking lot of the Village Plaza and would be also visible from the apartment complex that is behind us. But there's no residential area in front of our building or in back of the building. And then all the lighting that is currently on the building is in compliance because it comes away from the building and shines back onto the building.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wren. Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, I don't see any other board members that are having questions. So, Mr. Wren, thank you for your presentation. And we will turn this over to anyone in the audience or online who would like to speak in favor or opposition to the request. And if there are any, they may speak at this time.
Again, Mr. Chair, if there's anyone as an attendee tonight on Zoom that would like to speak, if you would please use the raise hand feature.
Okay, I'm going to assume that there are no people who want to speak. So I'd like to offer at this time an opportunity to hear an oral presentation of the department's report. Would anyone like to hear that? Okay, if not, then if the department would like to make any final comments, we would welcome that at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the board, as was mentioned in response to question, we did our very best to find the authorization for Prudential Securities, the real estate office, and Reliance Bank. We were unable to find them. Obviously, they are greater than 24 inches. The most recent applications, one reference as Simmons Bank and the other as Edward Jones, are in compliance to the 24-inch lettering height. The department did determine the issues associated with this request, and in the findings of fact, believe that the requested variance should not be supported. The department's available for any comments or questions. Thank you.
So, Mr. Vunish, just to be clear, the Simmons Bank sign, I'm looking at it here, the Simmons Bank sign and the Edward Jones sign, those independently are in compliance with the signage requirements of the city, yes?
Yes, as approved by the Department of Planning. I would just note that the Reliance Bank used to be the sole tenant in that building. Ultimately, they relocated from the building and put it onto the market. It's now become a multi-tenant building. That's why there are two signs. And according to our code, each of the businesses has a right of signage based upon the lot's configuration and proximity to roadways. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right. Okay, are there any final questions that any of the board members would like to ask, or for that matter, a discussion amongst the board before we close the proceeding for a vote? Any comments amongst ourselves or for the department? Mr. Van Nest.
Okay, can you hear me?
We
The way
can.
it's been working. Okay. I was just going to say, I've driven by there, and the unique location of that building, separate from the shopping center. If you don't know what's there, you're not going to see it. And I think that when they said that the sign was appropriate for the Prudential building, now granted, that might have been before our 24-inch ordinance. I came and talked to Ms. Ripito earlier, and she said she don't know if that was previous to the 24-inch ordinance. But it seems like that size worked previously and gave the visibility. That building's hard to see from Manchester. It's even hard to see from West Glen. And I think anything you can help will make the business do better job. And we need to keep our Wildwood businesses healthy. And I looking at the pictures of the previous signs, I don't think that they were too in your face. You know, with the size of the facade and the arches over it, I thought it looked, in my case, appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Van Nest. Any other comments? Mr. Lux.
Two questions from my end. The first is, there is no road signage at all, correct? It is only building signage that is available for this property?
Mr. Lux, the governing ordinance does allow a monument sign on the retaining wall that faces toward the intersection of Route 100 and West Glen Farms Drive. There is no signage there. I think Ms. Ripito's last slide showed that area and the empty wall, so to speak.
Okay, so as an alternative to the increased size, they could relocate the signage elsewhere?
Certainly, the monument sign is available. I don't know the arrangement between the two property owners and who has first rights or who has rights, but there is a monument sign authorized.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so forgive me. I'm looking at all these pictures of buildings here. The Simmons Bank, Edward Jones signage building, that is the building that the Wrens are talking about, correct?
No, sir.
No.
Oh, they look strikingly similar.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr.
But they're close to each other.
They are two separate buildings connected by what I would call a breezeway, where the drive-through facilities for the bank are located along with the ATM.
I see. Okay, all right,
May I make a comment?
please.
The monument sign, the retaining wall that was mentioned is not on my property. I did talk to the Edward Jones agent that was there. He had brought up that he had asked if he could put a monument sign there as well. And I believe he was told no. And I think the reasoning for that is in his building, in the building that the Edward Jones office is in, he occupies 1/3 or less of that space. And he is a leasee. He's not the building owner. That building will be going up for sale soon. And I believe the building owner, if they're an owner occupant, probably would want that monument sign. They wouldn't allow us to put a sign on their property.
And again, Mr. Chair, the ordinance just granted one. I don't know the relationship between the two properties. Thank you.
Sure, right. Mr. Van Ness, you made a point that there's just a couple things that strike me. Number one, it seems like that signage size apparently is working for Simmons Bank and for Edward Jones. So it makes me wonder, why couldn't it work for NTP? So that's one thought. The other is, Mr. Van Ness, you said those buildings are just hard to find, period, just because of where they are, and they're around trees and all that other stuff. And it makes me wonder, well, yeah, a bigger sign would maybe help, but is it really going to make a difference if you can't even find, it's hard to find the building, period. So I don't know that granting a variance to get a bigger sign is going to help solve that problem if it's just hard to see the building, period. So those are just a couple comments.
Number one, Simmons Bank went out of business, so evidently the sign didn't work real well. And that building's sitting empty other than the office of Edward Jones. And I just think any help we can give to the business to make it successful is worth consideration. I'm not saying you have to vote that way, but I'm just saying
Sure.
The nature of the location and the nature of the buildings makes it needing some help. I mean, they're requesting it because they think they need help.
Okay.
I love Wildwood. My business was in Ellisville, and Wildwood recruited us here, right? So, and we wanted to be in Wildwood because we're residents. My wife and I own a home. We're over in Princeton Ridge. My son, who is there, he and his wife own a home. They literally live over in West Glen Farms. So, we definitely want to be a good community member and invest in the community. When I realized I needed a variance for this, I drove through Wildwood, and there are many signs that are larger than 24 inches. And I agree, they're not in my particular address. But, Schnucks, Deerberg's, Wildwood Hotel, over by Wildwood Pub and Grill, there are many signs that are larger, and they're larger than 24 inches for a reason. The prior tenants had a larger sign. Maybe the ordinance wasn't there, or maybe they just put it up. But I thought it's much better to partner with the city and work with you so that we can have a good working relationship for the community between businesses that do exist there, as well as the board. When I look at Velarde's sign, I think that sign looks horrible on that building over there, because they've crunched a bunch of letters in a 24-inch space. And it looks extremely congested. But I think for the size sign versus the facade that the building is, seems very appropriate for us.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts or comments? No? Okay, then at this time, we will close this portion of the meeting and move to a vote. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve or deny the request?
I make a motion that we approve the request.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Van Ness. Do we have a second on that motion? Okay, well, I think we've provided ample time for a second. So I believe the motion fails. Therefore, now, Mr. Young, I'm going to need your help here. Do we need to have another motion to deny?
Yes, sir.
Okay, since the motion,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. The other alternative is to approve with conditions, which is a different motion than simply the motion to approve. So one of those two options.
okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, so then would someone like to make a motion to either approve with conditions or to deny the request?
Can I ask a question?
Actually, I don't think so, because we closed the discussion portion of this meeting for a vote. Mr. Young, would you correct me if I'm wrong?
Well, technically, under Robert's Rules of Order, once a motion is made, any discussion can occur on that motion.
The discussion can occur on that motion.
Correct. So a motion, but a motion should come first.
A motion should come first. Mr. Rubis, I hope that your discussion will be pertinent to the next motion. So again, at this time, would someone like to make another motion to either approve with conditions or to deny?
I'll make a motion to deny the variance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Frank. Mr. Rubis, would you like to, before I ask for a second, would you like to make your comment or ask your question?
Mr. Chair, the second should come first so that the motion's on the floor.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, do we have a second to deny?
Mr. Springer, I'll speak.
Okay, we have a second to deny the request. All right, Mr. Rubis, now you can go.
Okay, I was thinking along the line of, the lettering on the sign is 24 inches. Am I correct in that as presented?
Apparently.
The problem is that the logo is not in compliance. Is that correct?
Well, the logo with the words together are not in compliance. I think the logo is actually bigger than 24 inches as well, but they're not separate. They all go together, I believe, if I understand that correctly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to deny the request as submitted. Mr. Rubis, how do you vote? And we'll need for you to unmute.
I vote nay.
Mr. Frank? You'll need to unmute.
Yep, sorry about that. So clarification, voting yes to deny or nay to. Give me a clarification here on the vote.
On the vote. Okay. So Mr. Rubis, to clarify what you voted for, you are voting to deny the request.
I'm voting to deny the motion.
Okay.
Right. The motion on a motion to deny, an aye vote is in furtherance of the motion, which is to deny. A nay vote is against
Yes.
the motion to deny.
Yes.
Okay. So let me double back to Mr. Rubis just to be perfectly clear. So you are voting yay. Oh, you're voting nay. Okay. All right. Just to be clear, you're voting nay. Okay. Mr. Frank?
I'm voting yay to deny the motion.
Okay. Mr. Lux, how are you voting?
Yay to deny.
Mr. Van Nest, how are you voting?
I'm voting nay.
You're voting nay. And I am voting yay. But we do not have, that motion did not carry. So at this juncture, we don't have any motion that has carried.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Vunish, the vote on this was 3-2.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
And as a matter of common law, it takes 4 votes to approve a variance, but it does not take 4 votes to deny a variance. So the vote of 3-2 passes unless there's bylaws that dictate otherwise. Mr. Vunish, are there?
No, sir. It is 4 votes to approve a variance.
Right. So a vote of 3-2 passes to deny the variance.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So the variance request is submitted is denied. Okay. All right. At this point, I think there are no further cases to be heard. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. We have one more item on our agenda for the evening, and that is election of officers. Mr. Vunic, would you like to make some introductory comments, please?
Mr. Chair, very briefly, we have 3 officer positions, the chair, vice chair, and secretary. I would defer to Mr. Young to explain the process if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the election of officers, the standard procedure is to open nominations for each individual office. Upon the opening of the nominations, any person can make a nomination. There is no requirement for a second for that nomination. Once there are no further nominations, Mr. Chair, you can close the nominations and then conduct a vote on the nominees in the order in which they were nominated. The first person to receive a majority vote will be elected to that position.
Okay, so just to clarify, someone gets nominated and then it's a simple majority vote.
Correct.
Okay.
So if only one person is nominated for the first office, by way of example, let's say there's 2 people for just the fun of it. Once we've got those 2 nominations, we see that there are no further nominations, you close nominations on that office. So let's say for chair. Then you ask for a vote on the first person nominated. If that vote passes, that person is chair. If that vote fails, you go to the second nominee.
Okay. All right. Okay, and you just go in order as they've been nominated.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, so the first position is the chair of the committee. And so are there any nominations that anyone would like to make at this point? And I'll go ahead and just maybe lead this off. I think Jared has been serving as chair for a while since Mary had left. I think he's done a good job, so I'd like to nominate him as the chairperson. Are there any other nominations? Okay, I don't hear any other nominations. So we still need to vote. Is that right, Mr. Young?
I think it'd be appropriate to, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Mr. Lux, how do you vote?
Yay.
Mr. Rubis, how do you vote?
Yay.
Mr. Van Nest, how do you vote?
Yay.
I vote yay, and I don't know, does Jared vote as well?
A little late to say no now, so yeah, yes.
All right.
Thank you for the nomination, Arnie.
Yeah. Okay, and so we also have secretary, and then I think like vice chair. We'll do the secretary next. Would someone like to nominate someone for the secretary? By the way, what does the secretary do? Could someone explain that?
Ms. Ripito will provide you an explanation.
Great. But she's looking forward to that. Yeah. And we need for you to unmute, even though you don't want to. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, excellent. As far as the secretary position is concerned, a lot of it is in title only. The department handles the minutes, but they would have to chair the meeting in the event that we did not have a chair or an acting chair. We would need the secretary to be able to chair said meeting.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, typically the secretary signs the minutes that are prepared from the meeting.
Okay. All right. So that would be one of their official duties. Okay. All right. Would anyone like to nominate someone to be secretary?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd just like to add one additional piece of information to what Ms. Ripito added, as she indicated that the secretary serves as the chair in the event that the chair and the vice chair are unable to chair that particular meeting. But it should be noted that the person who is secretary does in fact need to do that. That's not something that the secretary can waive or say, no, I don't want to do it. They will be required to chair that particular meeting if the other two positions are unavailable. So it's not a, no, I don't want to do it. So I just want to make sure that that's very clear, that the person filling that position understands the obligations and the requirements of that position of secretary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross, for that clarification. So that is, and that can happen too. I think it's happened in the last few years here, maybe more than once. So we should keep that in mind. All right, so I'm just gonna, Mr. Lux, would you be willing to, I know, I'm sorry, but would you be willing to serve in that capacity?
Willing and able, yes.
Okay, so I am nominating Mr. Lux for that. Any other nominations? No. Okay. Well then, Mr. Frank, how do you vote?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Rubis, how do you vote? And unmute, please.
Okay, yes.
All right. Thank you, Jim. And then Mr. Van Ness, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. And Kevin, I hope you vote yes too.
I just vote no, so it's not unanimous.
Okay, there you go. There you go. But you're still in. You're still in. All right. So that's that. And then we have, what's this like? Oh, the last one is vice chair or assistant chair or vice chair. Is that what it's called?
Yes, sir, vice chair.
Okay. All right. So we'll need a nomination for vice chair.
Arnie, you did such a good job tonight. I don't know how we could not give you a compliment right back. So I'd nominate you, Arnie.
All right. Are there any other nominations? Okay, if not, Mr. Lux, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Rubus, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Frank?
Yes.
Mr. Van Ness?
Yes.
And I guess I vote yes too. Okay. All right. So we have, just to summarize, Mr. Frank is the chair of the Board of Adjustment. I am the vice chair, and Mr. Lux is the secretary of the Board of Adjustment. And so I believe we have fulfilled the requirement or obligation to name officers for this board. Am I missing anything, Mr. Young or Mr. Vunich?
Not on my behalf, sir.
Okay. Well, in that case, I believe we have completed our agenda for the evening. Oh, Mr. Rubus.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, I love that. All right, there's the motion. And do I have a second for that?
I second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Frank. And then Mr. Van Ness, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Lux? I see that head nod. Is that a yes? I assume it is. Mr. Lux?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, Mr. Frank?
Yes.
Mr. Rubus?
Yes.
And I also vote yes to adjourn. Okay, so I think we are finished for the night. As always, thank you so much for your participation. I know tonight was a little bit different with the closed session and so forth, but I think we all benefited from that. And until next time, I bid you farewell and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.